across to Andrew Fidel Fernando, author and journalist who joins us from Colombo. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Talk us through how bad things have become in the country, please.
First of all, thank you for having me on. It's become really dire. You know, as you mentioned, there's a shortage of medicines in hospitals, which means that routine surgeries are now being delayed. Doctors are having to ration medicines, figure out which of their patients require it more. On top of which, what's been going on for weeks is that there's just been a gradual deterioration of everybody's living standards, particularly the working and middle classes, who are finding that they can't, that the cost of very, very basic items, things that Sri Lankans rely on, like rice, like dal, like gram, just the absolute staples of our kind of cuisine and our sustenance is now out of reach for many people, because for months now, people's bank balances have been dwindling. Of course, we're coming out of a major economic stress in the terms of the COVID-19 pandemic as well. And before that, there was 2019 Easter bombings, which also was a big hit to the economy. We were seeing kind of tourism. Tourism was just starting to come back when this economic crisis hit. And once again, because of the news of the economic crisis having traveled overseas, tourism is once again on the decline. Regular people, it's kind of a new heartbreak every day for regular people. It's the situation just does not seem to be improving, and there are no solutions from the political leadership. Across the country, we've now had very, very strong protests. From Colombo, which is the capital, to even the kind of the deep south and the heartland of the voting base for the current regime. The Rajapaksas, the family who are kind of essentially in charge, and even their own, most ardent supporters are coming out strongly against them. But there does not seem to be any political will from the top to change the government, and there does not seem to be, even from the opposition, a plan about how to give Sri Lanka immediate relief. And it does seem like we're getting into this economic crisis for months now.
Indeed. And Fidel, I want to ask you what people want exactly, because the president a minister at least has said the president has no intention of resigning. Are people calling for his resignation?
Absolutely. People are calling not just for his resignation, but the resignation of the entire Rajapaksa family, who are seen as being central to setting this crisis in motion. There's for years now, there's been economic mismanagement from them. There are white elephant infrastructure projects all across their home province in Hambantota. There's been, this was a very, very avoidable crisis. There's nothing, of course, the whole world went through economic stress as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, but this Rajapaksa government has ignored a lot of economic advice and put in place and doubled down on very bad economic policies, awful fiscal management, and the cry from the protests all around the country. And I've never seen protests on this scale for anything in Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka is not a country that is unfamiliar with crisis.
Exactly. If Sri Lanka knows crisis all too well, you've had a 26-year-long civil war. I want to jump on a point you mentioned when it comes to food insecurity, because from what I understand, Sri Lanka has always been producing its own food. So what's gone wrong?
So one of the big kind of flaws, or one of the big mistakes of this government was last year to essentially decree that Sri Lanka was going to become an organic fertilizer-only country, and that they would ban chemical fertilizers. And chemical fertilizers banned virtually overnight, which was, obviously a huge problem for farmers who had gotten used to using chemical fertilizers for decades now, and their yields were dropping in some places as many as much as 60%, or just over 60%. And so when you've got an incredibly poor policy, and it's not that I disagree with the policy. Perhaps there is a space for encouraging organic farming, but this was an outright blanket ban, which did not allow the market, did not allow farmers, did not allow the agriculture sector to kind of become accustomed to a new way of doing things, and that has seen food prices skyrocket. It's seen the amount of food available at markets really kind of decline, and that is key to understanding the food crisis. But also, Sri Lanka imports a lot of food, imports a lot of rice from Pakistan, lots of spices from India, and dal from the region as well. And the depreciation of the rupee has, of course, sent those things skyrocketing as well. All of these things have come to a head to really hit Sri Lankans at home. There's every day there seems to be a little bit more hunger. Every day there seems to be a little bit more kind of a broken nation because people are struggling to feed their children.
But at least the spirit is out there on the streets. Fidel, Fernando, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. Appreciate it.